Hi everyone. This is another video, getting started video for computer programming 143 that is just made to get you guys started on practical 5 that you were seeing this week. And the aim of this practical is firstly to declare an array and also load values into it. You'll be focusing on random values to load that into the array. We'll be looking at something a bit simpler in this getting started video. We're also going to test you to or assess whether you can access array entries using a for loop. And you're going to look at how you're going to manipulate these arrays. And then also we're going to look at the functionality of recursion and how that works. All right, so I'm going to do two parts in this practical. The first part is aimed at question A is pretty simple. You can go through it and it'll get you going with the arrays, how you read values into array and how you print it out. We're going to work with character arrays in this question. But what I want to look at is, so just read through the instructions, you should be okay. I want to look at question B. Okay, so question B is basically aimed at numerical arrays, operations on numerical arrays, but using functions. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to, or what you're going to do is you're going to write these four functions. You're going to function assign rand array. This function should assign random values into this array that is of size, a specified year, size of array. Okay, so in part 1 here in the program description, we tell you that you need to declare an array of type int that has 11 elements. Okay, so and on that array of type int with 11 elements, you're going to be working on these, you're going to be using these functions to work on that array, right? So today, in this getting started video, we're going to look at something similar to this function, assign rand array. I'm just going to assign a value to the array. I leave it to you guys to figure out how the random component works. But we're going to look at something that's definitely going to get you started on assigning values, integer values, into an array. And obviously you want to display the array. So we're going to look at those two, and I leave the other two to you guys in the practical. All right. So, but for the random assignment in the array, you can really look at the comments in the practical and or the steps in the practical description. That's really clear, and you guys should be able to figure it out from there. Okay, so and as I said, displaying the array, nothing funny, just the purpose of this function would simply be to step through the array and display the index of the array element as well as the value of the array element. Okay, so that is what we want to do here. Then you'll also be looking at the sorting the array, which you guys have done in the lectures, and then you want to display the array a second time, so you'll be able to see the sorted elements. But very important, you're not going to write this part again. You're going to use, or not, you're not going to write another function to do this. You're just going to call the function that you've already written in this part, in point number 4. Okay, so first things first, let's do this, let's get you started with this question. Okay, so this is our Eclipse environment. I'm going to, let's just clear this this console. I'm going to start off clean. This is my Eclipse environment. I'm going to create a new C project. This project is called, let's say, getting started prac 5, and this is assignment B. Okay, very important, make sure it's an empty project, make sure it's min.gwgcc is selected for the compiler. We select finish. Okay, so if you look at your projects over here, everything should be closed except the one that we're going to work on now. We right click on that, we say new, and then we say C source file. Let's call this thing arrays.c, just something simple. You have the correct naming convention in your practical assignment, so please follow that. Don't follow what I'm doing here. This is really just to get you going. Okay, so This is my NTC file. What am I going to do now? Firstly, I'm going to just include my standard IO, and let's also include my standard library over here. All right. Then what I'm going to do is, I know that in the practical assignment specifications, we say a few times that this part of the question, you're going to operate on an integer array of 10 values, of size 10. Okay, so that size is going to feature quite a few times in your code. And when that, but if that size is going to change, so for example, we update that, we tell you, please now, instead of operating on 10 elements, operate on 20. We want an easy way in which to make sure that our code updates correctly in all the places if one little thing like that changes. And the way that we're going to do this is to define a preprocessor directive called size. Okay, so we're going to use a hash define for this, and we tell it that this name, this constant size, is 10. So what the compiler does is, if we use, you'll see later, we're going to use this size. Before it compiles the program, it's going to replace that word size with the number 10. Okay, so it's a way in which to make our code more scalable. So then we've got to obviously use our function prototypes. And as I said, I'm just going to get you going with 2 of these, and the one that I'm going to create in this video is called assign value to array, val to array. This is now replacing your assignment specification that says assign random to array. So you've got to extend this, or change this in order to function like that. But for the purpose of keeping things brief, we're just going to use this assign val to array. So what we're going to do is, we know that we're going to get an integer array. And remember, arrays like this are always passed by reference. So another parameter that what we're going to pass to our function is the size of the array, so that we know which parts of memory we're going to access. And that can be done by making sure we stick to the size of the array that's been specified. And obviously that value is this 10 over here. Okay, so that's the one function prototype. The other function prototype that I want to see is, obviously I want to make sure that my program is working correctly. So I would like to get the display array function as well. Same thing, takes the array as an input argument, and also the size of the array. So let's go over to our main function over here. And now I'm going to declare my array. So let's declare my array. And this I can do, it's an integer array. And how do we do that? With these square brackets. So now this is where I put this hash define in, this constant called size. I can put this in here, because that declares an integer array with 10 elements. So what I would like to do first is, I want to assign a value to the array. And I'm going to pass this function, I'm going to pass my array into this function array, and I'm going to tell it again that it's of size 10 over here. Now immediately, imagine if I wanted to change my code in order to use arrays of 20 elements, then I would have had to update this part and update this part, and if you get something, then your code breaks. So this is where this hash define comes in very nicely. Okay, so, and obviously what I want to do is, I want to print out my array. So let's just say, just to print it, before that, printing the array. Okay. Now my main returns, and as I told you guys, it is always good to write some form of an indication that you're at the end of your program. Okay, so we want to print the array, but we're going to call our display array function, which takes in the array as an input argument and also the size again. Okay, so now our main sort of functions as expected. Return here requires a 0 because main is an integer function. Okay, so this looks more or less fine, but what is missing now? Obviously, my function definitions. Okay, these are my function prototypes. Here, I'm calling my functions, but I now need to give some meat to my functions, okay, some body. And that can be done using function definitions. Now, good practice is always to comment what your function is going to about. Okay, so I'm going to add my comment here. I'm going to say the first one, and this one, is void assign val to array that takes in my integer array and also the value of that array. This function, what does it do? We can comment and say it's a function that assigns an integer value from 0, let's say integer value to an integer array, okay? That assigns integer values because it's more than one, it's one for each array element to the integer. Okay, so now when I close my program, forget about it, come back, read it again, I now know through my comment what my function is doing. Alright, now let's copy this and let's already create sort of the skeleton for displaying my array function. So just always remember, when you copy and paste, that is the source of many errors and frustrating errors at that as well. So be very careful when you copy and paste. It is sometimes dangerous. Well, it's mostly dangerous. So a function, what does this print display array do? So it is a function that displays an integer array, displays the integer array elements. Okay, so that's what my function display array does. Okay, so now let's complete this function, assign val to array. Okay, what do we want to do? Well, we are going to firstly loop over the array. That's just our strategy. Let's figure out our strategy. Our strategy would be to loop over the array, okay? And what is our loop variables? Our loop variables are going to go, we can only operate from 1 till about the size of array. Otherwise, we are going to try to access memory outside the bounds of that array, and that's going to cause all sorts of errors like segmentation violations and so on. So we want to make sure that we only assign variables in the limits, the boundaries of this array. So for that, we're going to use a counter-controlled method, and that would be a for loop. Okay, so we're going to say for I equals 0. Let's start off here. Okay, I is less than size of array and I++. Okay, what do we do here? Well, let's assign now integer values to my array. So int I looks like this, assign the value. Okay, so here I just say that my arrays, the ith element is equal to the counter I. Okay, now, and that's it. So just a note, replace, or a hint, replace this part in the prac with the random functionality. Okay, so we replace this part. What are you going to use to assign a random value as specified in the practical to the array elements? You should be able to figure that out. And we return. Okay, now our second function, display the array. What are we going to do here? Well, it also loops over the array elements and it just prints out the array like this. So I can pretty much use everything here. Just again, be very careful when you copy and paste. Make sure that you do. So let's print out my array elements like this. I can say array equals %d. And what do I need to put in here? I need to put in, well, my counter, and then my array. All right, like this. Okay, so let's compile my program. Everything looks fine, and let's run the program. Okay, and there we go. We say we're printing the array elements 0 to 9 as the counter variables near 0 to 9, and my exit tells me that my program has quit completely. Now, just to illustrate the power of this hash define, let's say we want to change the size to 15. I do it in one place and everything should update correctly. Let's build it. Let's run it. Lovely. Very convenient. Huh? If you didn't have that, then you would have had to change this school, this school, this school, and probably make a mistake in the middle, and then things won't work as expected. Okay, this is this is the first part of the getting started video. I'm going to go over, well, I think we're going to stop there now, and I'll upload a separate video for the second part of the getting started for practical 5, that is on recursion.